In this video, we've compiled some of the biggest scams on Pawn Stars. So without further ado, let's get started.
Oh, little bird told me you had some Willy Wonka stuff?
Some props from the original film. Why, are you a fan?
Rick Harrison, owner of the Pawn Stars shop, sought to purchase Willy Wonka memorabilia, specifically props from the original film. Upon meeting the seller, he was presented with a collection of 5 pieces from the 1971 movie with an asking price of $725,000. Among the items were the original hat worn by Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, a heavy golden egg, a genuine screen-used golden ticket, and Wonka bars used during filming.
This is the golden egg.
And a golden ticket?
A genuine, screen-used golden ticket. And to boot, Wonka bars.
Those were what they used on the set?
Yeah.
The everlasting gobstopper caught Rick's eye the most, evoking nostalgic memories of his childhood admiration for the film. He expressed his excitement and discussed its significance in the movie's storyline. The seller revealed that each prop came from Julie Dawn Cole, who portrayed Veruca Salt, adding further value and provenance to the pieces.
It's like the Hope Diamond. Yeah, that's like the Holy Grail. When I was 7 years old, that's the one thing I remember was the everlasting gobstopper.
Rick decided to acquire the everlasting gobstopper, which he considered the centerpiece of the entire assortment. Initially priced at $100,000, Rick haggled the cost to $105,000, securing the iconic movie prop. Overwhelmed with joy, he felt the gobstopper was akin to the holy grail of movie memorabilia, and possessing it made him feel like a child again.
$105,000 and I get a Wonka bar.
I'm gonna miss that everlasting gobstopper.
Sweet!
You got a deal.
I'm 7 years old again.
But Rick Harrison got scammed because he believed that it was the authentic everlasting gobstopper. But it turned out to be a fake candy prop worth far less. The seller took advantage of Rick's enthusiasm and lack of verification, leaving him with a significant financial loss.
This is it, the Mouse House. That's all from the 1930s.
This has got to be like the most impressive collection I've ever seen in my life. This is all pre-Disneyland.
Rick Harrison found an impressive collection of vintage Disney Store displays from the 1930s. He was excited about the Mouse House and considered it one of the coolest collections he had ever seen. The seller explained that these displays were from before Disneyland and were made with delicate materials, making them rare today. Among the items shown, there was an old King Cole store display of pre-Donald Duck that could move, which amazed Rick. The seller also showed Walt Disney's original business card from the Hyperion studio in Hollywood with Mickey, Donald, and another Mickey on it.
Old King Cole store display, pre-Donald. But the beauty of this thing is, it moves.
Rick, being a big Disney fan, really wanted to have these store displays and negotiated with the seller. The seller initially asked for $15,000 for the Donald Duck display and offered both displays together for $25,000. After some back and forth, Rick managed to get them for $30,000.
So if I took them all,
35,000, Rick.
can we meet in the middle?
That would be 3250, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
He was thrilled with the purchase and looked forward to displaying them in his shop. But many viewers believed that Rick got scammed in this deal because they felt he made an unwise purchase. They thought he seemed too trusting and unaware of the seller's intentions, as the seller used Rick's appearance in his shop to promote his business. This gave the seller more publicity and a chance to showcase his expensive collectibles, which led viewers to think that Rick paid more than what the items were actually worth.
I have an autographed Macho Man Randy Savage costume. Oh yeah, brother.
That was Hulk Hogan. Just, oh yeah, was Macho Man.
I'm selling my Macho Man costume for $7,500. Oh yeah.
A person came to sell an autographed Macho Man Randy Savage costume consisting of pants, a hat, and a shirt. Corey Harrison, who's a big fan of wrestling, dealt with the seller. The seller revealed that he was Randy Savage's wedding photographer and was close to both him and his wife. After Randy's passing, the wife allowed the seller to pick anything from the closet, and he chose this Macho Man costume.
I was his wedding photographer, and he died a year and 10 days after the ceremony, and I had been very close to him, and she said, go back in the costume room and pick out anything you want.
The shop's expert, Steve Grad, examined the autograph and confirmed its authenticity. He praised the set's value, especially if it could be matched to a specific event in Randy's career. The expert estimated the value to be around $9,000 to $10,000, depending on additional historical context.
On the low end, $7,000. If you could match it to an event or something he wrestled in or wore this, I think this could be $9,000 or $10,000.
The seller initially asked for $6,000, but eventually agreed to settle for $5,000. Corey made a counteroffer of $5,000, but the seller insisted on sticking with $6,000. The seller eventually agreed to sell the costume for $5,000. It was the most significant amount Corey had ever spent on wrestling memorabilia.
It's worth $7,000 as it sits right now. According to your expert, $6,000 is where I would be right now.
I'll do $5,000.
I'll do $5,000.
Deal.
However, the store faced challenges selling the costume despite its historical significance and authenticity. Even Chumley expressed concern about the high price of a Halloween costume. The situation took an emotional turn when viewers and fans of Randy Savage felt that selling the costume was disrespectful to his legacy. They believed it was betraying the memory of a wrestling legend. The seller's decision to part with the costume, which was a gift from Randy's wife, further fueled the sentiment.
This is a book that belonged to Isaac Newton. It was printed in 1546.
Sweet.
That's pretty cool.
A person came to the pawn shop with a book that supposedly belonged to Isaac Newton. The old man, Richard Harrison, and Chum were present, and the old man dealt with the seller. The seller explained that he found the book wrapped up with his father's belongings and believed it could be worth thousands if it truly belonged to Newton.
This is the book plate for Isaac Newton. It shows the case location and Barnsley Park, which was in England, where the book was stored.
The old man seemed interested in purchasing the book, but he called in an expert to authenticate it. The expert identified the book as a publication from 1546 by George Agricola, known as the father of mineralogy. Newton had a particular interest in alchemy during that time. Unfortunately, the book had undergone restoration and rebacking, likely done in the 1700s. Nevertheless, it had Newton's bookplate and shelf number, confirming its association with the great scientist.
This book was restored. It was rebacked. The bookplate is from Newton's library. This book was owned by Isaac Newton.
The expert estimated the book's retail value at $20,000 due to its historical significance. The seller was hoping to get $15,000 for it, but the old man offered $5,000 initially. After some negotiation, they settled on $7,000 and the deal was made.
Could you do 7?
I'll split it with you at 6.
I can't take less than 7.
You know, if I give you 7 for it, I won't have money for dinner tonight.
If you give me 7 for it, I'll buy you dinner.
Sounds like a plan.
The expert clearly said that the value of the book could be around $20,000, but the old man manipulated the situation, claiming he couldn't afford more than $5,000. Even the customer was aware of its worth, but accepted the offer without negotiation, unknowingly underselling the rare historical item. The old man acquired the valuable piece at a significantly lower price, resulting in a clear scam.
Well, it's an 1890s Hotchkiss cannon. It was used in the Indian Wars. I bought this at an auction back east about 10 years ago, and now it's time to pass it on to someone else.
Rick Harrison came across an 1890s Hotchkiss cannon, said to have been used in the Indian Wars. Rick found the item as an amazing historical piece, so he was interested in acquiring it. The current owner proudly displayed the cannon on his front room, facing the entrance for visitors to see. Rick sought expert advice to verify the cannon's authenticity and value. The aged appearance with some rust indicated that it was likely genuine. The expert confirmed it as the first modern, self-contained cartridge-firing gun in American inventory.
This is the first modern, self-contained cartridge-firing gun in American inventory. Because the patina and little rust here and there, that's all indications that this is the real deal.
The expert appraised it at $40,000, but Rick hoped to negotiate a better price and mentioned his willingness to pay around $30,000. During the negotiation, the owner proposed testing the cannon's firing capability. Rick agreed and fired the cannon, believing it to be in good working condition. He made the purchase for $30,000 and added the cannon to his collection.
If it fires, it's 30 grand.
We're gonna get it dialed in so we can kill your plant downrange there.
But later, it was discovered that the owner had deceived Rick by rigging the cannon to appear functional during the test. In reality, the cannon was not operable after the purchase.
This is a letter signed by Napoleon himself.
This guy walks into the pawn store with a letter in his hand, which he calls the Napoleon letter, with his signature on it.
I'll give you $2,000 for it, man. That's the best I can do.
Corey looks at the letter very carefully and considers it a real deal. He tells the seller how much he thinks he can pay for the deal, which is $2,000.
I didn't pay that much for it, so let's do it.
The seller agreed on the amount that Corey told and got ready to close the deal on $2,000.
It's supposed to be an original document signed by Napoleon.
What Corey should have done before, he's doing it now, and that is getting the letter checked by an expert to see if both the signature and the letter are real, or just another scam.
There were a number of copies that were probably made on the battlefield because Napoleon dictated it to his secretaries. So if you've got one of the original copies that would have been written out on the battlefield, that would be priceless.
The expert tells Corey a little history about Napoleon and how he used to dictate the situation going on in the battlefield to his secretaries. The expert calls it a real deal if the copy of the letter is original.
This is not one of those original manuscript copies. Can't say that this is worth very much as a historical artifact.
However, the expert does not think that the letter is an original manuscript and thinks that the document is fake.
The COA fooled me, it's fake.
Corey, why don't you take it home and remind yourself not to be so damn stupid?
Corey got scammed big time, and there's no undoing to it, and this is what the old man thinks too.
I have my uncle's comic book collection. This was handed down to me.
Pretty cool.
This blonde lady walks down in the pawn shop with her late uncle's comic book collection. Chumley, who's at the counter, looks at the book collection and feels excited to have them.
To get somebody down here that knows what they're talking about.
Dude, I don't need Paul. These are comic books.
Chum dives deep into the collection and ignores his colleague Antoine, who suggests to Chum to call a comic book expert before he makes any final deal.
What exactly are you looking to get for him?
I'd like to get $2,000.
At first, the lady asks for $2,000 when Chumley asks the lady how much she wants for the book collection.
I'll give you $50 a box.
I don't want no parts of this if you don't call Paul down here.
Chum makes an offer of $50 for each box, making it a total of $350 for the deal. However, the seller says that she can't go lower than $500. Chum asks Antoine, but he still insists on calling an expert down.
Life is about chances, and sometimes you just gotta take them.
Chum eventually decides to go with the $500 price.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah.
You got First Taskmaster, First Nova, Red Hulk, some good stuff.
When Rick got to know about it, he calls an expert in for the evaluation of the comic book collection. However, things didn't turn out well after what he said next.
Stack I pulled is probably $200 retail.
Other couple £100 of comic books are worth?
5 cents a book if you're lucky. It's like it's common stuff.
It was later found out that 18 of the sets are worth $200 and the rest of the collection is just 5 cents for each book. As per the expert's opinion, the collection is not worth a lot of money.
You spent $500 on some comic books I'll be lucky to get like $180 out of, and 7 boxes of the recyclable paper. So they're basically worthless.
Chum got scammed by the customer, and Rick doesn't like it very much.
Sioux Youth Vest. I believe it was made in about 1890.
You want to pawn it? You want to sell it?
I was looking to sell it.
The pawn shop is again on the edge of getting scammed when a seller walks into the shop with an Indian vest in his hand, hoping to sell it for a good sum.
I was looking at $1,800.
You're asking a lot of money for a baby's vest.
Upon being asked by Rick, the customer tells him that he wants to sell it for $1,800, which Corey thinks is a lot of money for a baby vest.
Would you go 14?
Meet you in the middle at 13. That's what I could do.
All right, I'm gonna go with that.
Rick makes the deal final at $1,200, but the seller doesn't seem to agree on it. He then tells him that he can make it $1,300, which the customer agrees on and closes the deal.
It's Northern Plains beadwork. Unfortunately, I don't think this is from that time period.
Rick calls in an expert to get his thoughts on the vest. It was found out that the item was not how it was told.
It's basically a fake.
No, I wouldn't say it's a fake. I think it's Indian made, but it's made for sale. It's not made for use.
The expert tells Rick that the item is not fake though, but it is not made for use, but to sell.
The Indian vest would have turned out to be real. Here, it's Mark Hall patent. That Indian vest you bought is actually real.
Hey, Mark, what's up?
Nope.
Corey makes fun of Rick because it's something rare for Rick to get scammed like that. If you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Now, back to the video.
Gibson, mandolin.
This seller has brought a Gibson mandolin to Chumley in the pawn shop with the aim of selling it at a good price.
Hey, Rick, Corey, Rick.
Chum tries to call one of the Harrisons to have a look at the item, just to make sure that the item is not fake, but no one's around.
From the early 1930s. Gibson mandolins are sweet.
Chumley starts examining the item on his own, not realizing that he's making the same mistake again. That is, not consulting anyone.
You can see the craftsmanship on it is phenomenal.
This is the authentic.
Upon having a look, Chumley believes that the item is in good shape.
I actually have a spending limit of $1,000. $1,300.
$1,895.
I mean, you see the shape it's in.
I'll go 14, and that's pushing the barrel.
1,500, and we got a deal.
15 sounds fair. I can make a
15?
profit.
The seller asked for a price of $3,000 initially, but Chum thinks $1,000 is a fair purchase for an item like this. After some negotiations, the deal gets final at $1,500. To find out if he's made a good deal, he goes to the expert, Jesse from Cowtown Guitars.
Cut out with some scissors, and it's not even a G that Gibson ever used. And the finish is like plastic. Gibsons are covered in a lacquer finish. This is fake as hell, man.
Jesse looks at the mandolin very carefully and tells Chumley that it is not what he thinks, and that the Gibson's logo and the finishing is just covered in the plastic. He tells Chum that the item is nothing but a complete fake.
Yeah, maybe about $100. I hate mandolin.
Jesse assumes the price to be not more than $100, which tells that Chumley actually lost $1,400, which is huge.
Signed by Shoeless Joe Jackson.
It's the rarest sports signature, period.
A seller walks into the pawn shop with a book signed by the renowned baseball player Joseph Jefferson Jackson, also known as Shoeless Joe Jackson.
I'd like to get like $30,000 for the book.
I'll go $13,000. I won't go a penny more.
Okay.
The seller initially wanted $30,000 for the book, but Rick made an offer of $13,000, which he accepted and closed the deal.
This signature is real. This is by far one of the craziest things you brought to me. So what I have here is one of the only Joe Jackson signatures that all the authenticators can agree upon. This A here he was struggling with. This one looks like a pretty normal A. And then the K here goes straight into an O, whereas this, the K, he tries to do the loop. I'm not convinced that it's real.
Rick then calls in the signature expert to have a look. Upon clear analysis, it was found out that the signatures were not real. But things could be changed if Rick gets a general agreement from the authenticators to certify.
So it's not real?
Well, no, I'm going to send it off some more people. I'm going to try and get a consensus on this thing.
Several factors became apparent during our thorough examination that prevented us from certifying the autographs. The entire small case E in Joe's first name has been erased and signed over the original.
However, the decision was not something Rick had hoped for, making Rick get scammed one more time. Have you ever wondered what happens when sellers come to a pawn shop hoping to sell their item for money, only to discover it's fake? Watch our video, Pawn Stars Moments When Customers Got Angry, to see their reactions after finding out. Click here to watch.